Can you get rid of my picture? Ah. Ram. Hare Hare. Ram. Okay. She knows how to work it. You go back there. Dad doesn't know how to work it. You do. It's muted now? Yeah. Okay. Well, this is our final evening together. The topic is a nice topic. We just had some time together with chanting the holy name. So the image, the opening image is showing, you'll see this image again later. Hare Krishna mantra on one side, and the Bhagavatam on the other side. And the two go very well together. They have mutually supportive roles. And let's explore the topic. Some of you like to read Prabhupada's books. And one of those books is the Nectar Devotion. And you'll find in Nectar Devotion a list of 64 items that are recommended for bhakti. And 5 are the most potent forms of devotional service. Here's where that statement comes in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antilila. This is now not speaking of the 5 most potent. This is of the 9 processes of devotional service. The most important is to always chant the holy name of the Lord. If one does so, avoiding the 10 kinds of offenses, one very easily obtains the most valuable love of God. So what's the 5 most potent forms of devotional service? Chanting, deity worship, serving the devotees, reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, etc., and living in Austin, Texas, right? Residing in the Holy Dham. Residing in the Holy Dham. What Rupa Goswami writes there is, if one can do any one of these without offense, immediately Bhava Bhakti awakens in their heart. Any one of them, without offense, Bhava Bhakti awakens immediately within the heart. And here, the chanting done without offense, one very easily obtains the most valuable love of God. And so that's the chanting. Now here's the Bhagavatam. This Bhagavatam, this is the last chapter of the last canto, is the essence of all Vedanta philosophy because its subject matter is the absolute truth, which, while non-different from the spirit soul, is the ultimate reality, one without a second. The goal of this literature is exclusive devotional service unto the supreme truth. In the pages of the Bhagavatam, we'll find the topmost truth. Jiva Goswami, some of you, anyone here not know who the Jiva Goswami is and needs an introduction? You all know. Okay. Jiva Goswami wrote several commentaries on the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, and 2 commentaries just on 10th Canto Bhagavatam. very wonderful author. One of those commentaries on the Bhagavatam is divided in six divisions, topic by topic, called the Sandarbhas. In the first of the Sandarbhas, he begins by saying, I want to talk about Krishna. But wait a minute, before speaking about Krishna, what is the best means of establishing truths about Krishna, Krishna Tattva? And he goes through Tattva Sandarbha, whole explanation, and reaches the conclusion. It's very rigorous, but reaches the conclusion of all the means of knowing Krishna, the best is Srimad Bhagavatam. It's the topmost evidence for knowing Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam. It's very compelling and very foundational for his commentaries. Here's a nice image saying somewhat the same thing. There you see a kind of stairway going up, and at the other end of the stairway there's Radha and Krishna in the spiritual world. And Lord Chaitanya, seeing them, is fainting in ecstasy, seeing Radha and Krishna. This is a verse again from Chaitanya Charitamrita. The power of these five principles, the five most important activities of bhakti, is very wonderful and difficult to understand even without faith in them. A person who is offenseless can awaken his dormant love of Krishna simply by being a little connected with them. So this is glories and glories and glories of these five, and amongst the five, the two most important are these two. The holy name on one side, the Bhagavatam on the other side, and there's another path leading up, and see who's at the other end of that path. It's Krishna. Here's what Lord Chaitanya said in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Always discuss Srimad Bhagavatam and constantly chant the holy name of Lord Krishna. In this way, you'll be able to attain liberation very easily, and you'll be elevated to the enjoyment of love of Godhead. Very similar statements, but there's many items. Of those many items, five are most important. Of the five, two are most important. These two. So now that's what we're doing. We're looking at how they go well together. We're going to start with some of the glories of the holy name, and amongst the many, many, many places that speak about that, we'll be focused on the Bhagavatam. So the first reference is from 11th Canto, Chapter 5. That's Narada speaking to Vasudeva in Dwarka. Narada's visiting Dwarka. Vasudeva invites him to come to his home, and he wants to talk about transcendental knowledge. So that's what Narada does. And he speaks this verse: for the conditioned souls wandering in this world, there is no greater attainment than Sankirtan, from which one obtains bhakti with mind fixed on the Lord, and by which samsara is destroyed. Now this is quoted in Jiva Goswami's writings in Bhakti Sandarbha. One of the six Sandarbhas is Bhakti Sandarbha. And this is spoken before Lord Chaitanya appeared. The congregational chanting, Sankirtan. San means together, like you were just doing very nicely. And it's the best means for attaining Krishna. Here's a verse from Canto 1, Chapter 1. This is in the questions by the sages to Sutta Goswami. Living beings who are entangled in the complicated meshes of birth and death can be freed immediately by even unconsciously chanting the holy name of Krishna, which is feared by fear personified. You recognize the painting on the left side. That's Ajamila, who became very sinful. Although he started as a Brahmana, bad association, he had some problems. And he was destined to be brought to Yamaraj, but he called the name of Narayana at that very moment. When he saw the Yamadutas, he screamed, "Ah, Narayana!" He's calling his son. But anyway, even unconsciously or unintentionally is the way that it's described in the 6th canto. Here's from the 6th canto. One who chants the holy name of the Lord is immediately freed from the reactions of unlimited sins, even if he chants indirectly. That's Sanketya. That's what Sanketya. That's the kind of chant. This is Namabhas, or indirectly. Or joking, Parihasya. Or for musical entertainment, Stobha. Or neglectfully. That's what we do. Neglectfully. I mean, inattentively, mind wandering, but the mouth is going. That kind. This is accepted by all learned scholars of the scriptures. So it cleanses, the chanting of the holy name cleanses, even if we're in this Namabhas category. O King, Canto 2, Chapter 1. Constant chanting. This is a celebrated verse. Etan nirvidyamananam ichitam akutobayam. Yoginam nripa nirnitam harer namanukirtanam. Constant chanting of the holy name of the Lord, after the ways of the great authorities, is the doubtless and fearless way of success for all, including those who are freed from all material desires, those who are desirous of all material enjoyment, and also those who are self-satisfied by dint of transcendental knowledge. It's for everybody. Those that have material desires, those that have no material desires, and those that are self-satisfied. Sridhar Swami comments on this important verse. There is no method more beneficial than singing the Lord's names, both for the practitioners and for those who have already attained perfection. For those desiring material enjoyment, singing the Lord's names is the very means by which their desires can be fulfilled. For those who seek liberation, this alone is the means of salvation. And for those who seek knowledge of the Absolute, this also has been determined as the goal. By saying that this has already been concluded, it indicates there's no need for any further evidence. Case closed. Another verse from Bhagavatam, glorifying the holy name. This is Narada speaking. Important section of the Bhagavatam. He is describing his previous life to Vyasadeva, his disciple. And he was given a mantra by the Bhakti Vedantas, the learned sages that were staying where he was for the 4 months of the rainy season, right? Thus I began chanting the holy name and fame of the Lord by repeated recitation, ignoring all the formalities of the material world. So chanting remembrance of the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are benedictory. So doing, I travel all over the earth, fully satisfied, humble, and unenvious. And there's more. There's many, many more. This is a celebrated verse also. Ahobata sva pacho to gariyan. Oh, how glorious are they whose tongues are chanting your holy name. Even if born in the families of dog-eaters, such persons are worshipable. Persons who chant the holy name of your Lordship must have executed all kinds of austerities and fire sacrifices and achieved all the good manners of the Aryans. To be chanting the holy name of your Lordship, they must have bathed at the holy places of pilgrimage, studied the Vedas, and fulfilled everything required. Now what that means, one of the explanations is, whether they've done those things or not, the benefit of doing those things is within the chanting of the holy name. And so the fruit of those beneficial things is found within the chanting. Now, from Lord Chaitanya's teachings, well, it's not Lord Chaitanya's teachings. This is from Canto 11, Chapter 2. This is the Navayogendras instructing King Nimi. By chanting the holy name of the Supreme Lord, one comes to the stage of love of Godhead. Then the devotee is fixed in his vow as an eternal servant of the Lord, and he gradually becomes very much attached to a particular name and form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As his heart melts with ecstatic love, he laughs very loudly, or cries or shouts. Sometimes he sings and dances like a madman, for he is indifferent to public opinion. Well, some of you know the story of Lord Chaitanya when he was meeting with Prakashananda Saraswati, a sannyasi in Benares. He was the leader of thousands of sannyasis, a really learned fellow. And he was objecting to Lord Chaitanya doing things that sannyasis don't normally do. Normally sannyasis don't go mixing with worldly people and singing and dancing. I mean, he wasn't speaking about chanting the holy name and dancing in love of God. Just singing and dancing with worldly people is not what sannyasis do. They study Vedanta and chant Om and things like that. So why do you do this? The Lord Chaitanya said, when I was initiated by my spiritual master, he told me I'm a total fool and I have no qualification to understand Vedanta Sutra, so you should just chant. So I followed his instruction, and I was chanting and chanting, and very soon I started dancing like a madman and jumping around, and not because I was play acting, it was just happening spontaneously. So I went to him and asked him, what am I doing wrong? And he said, oh, very good. And he quoted, my spiritual master quoted this verse from the Navayogendras to King Nimi. It's at a mature stage, but Lord Chaitanya very quickly came to that stage in his chanting, and then beyond that. So it's not that that's our target, is just to dance like madmen, but the point is, when someone is so absorbed like a madman or a man that's intoxicated, they don't know where they are, and they don't, they say anything and do anything, and they don't even know what's going on. A madman or a drunk man. So those who are in the stage of love of God, the norms of society are not in their purview. They may come back to external consciousness and behave quite normally again, but from time to time they'll just go into the swoon of way, way beyond the norms of worldly society. Not by play acting, but by natural consciousness. So here's our remaining quote. There's Krishna, and here's the verse. Lord Chaitanya's Shikshastaka Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis. You all know the verse, right? Yeah? So Nija Sarva Shaktis is highlighted there. That means that Nija, his own, Sarva Shaktis, his own spiritual potencies, are within each and every name. And there's many, many names. Bahuda, Nam Namakari Bahuda, Nija Sarva Shaktis. Oh, my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, there it is again, you have invested all your transcendental energies, Nija Sarva Shaktis. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. Oh, my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. So emphasis is his names have Nija Sarva Shaktis, his own full spiritual potencies. There's a nice image. This is a mandala. It's just the Hare Krishna mantra. And by producing the gross sound of the mantra and hearing, we change the sound on a more subtle level, on the level of thought, then on the level of desire, and ultimately we experience something beyond this material existence on the transcendental platform. That's if we're chanting properly, gradually, gradually, gradually. The name is a spiritual sound that carries us beyond the boundaries of matter. Although it's a sound that one may seem like a material sound, it's not. There's material and there's spiritual sound. Material sound can't achieve this. So now, if this is so great, that's it, right? We don't need Bhagavatam or anything. Just chant. So do we need the Bhagavatam? Let's find out. This is a celebrated verse by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, where he is describing, it's his commentary actually, on Chaitanya Mata Manjusha. Raju Bhagavan Prajay Chaitanyas Tadama Vrindavanam Ramya Kadachit Upasana Brajavadhu Vargena Va Kalpita. Prabhupada quoted this often. Our acharyas like it very much. It's in this verse that I just read, Brajavadhu Vargena Va Kalpita. The best of all of the servitors of Krishna is the Brajavadhu, the ladies, the cowherd ladies of Vrindavan. The most pleasing form of worship for the Lord is that by which was performed by the gopis of Vrindavan. Brajavadhu Vargena. Ramya Kadachit Upasana. Very nice verse. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Pramanam Amalam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the spotless authority on everything. And Prema Pumarto Mahan. Pure love of Godhead is the ultimate goal of life for all men. These statements, which we have heard, which you have the highest regard, are the opinion of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam is the topmost of all pramanas, or pramana means evidence. You want to prove something in court or somewhere, something, you need evidence. So it's the best evidence for establishing absolute truth. The best. Amala. Spotless pramana. Here's a reproduction of a painting that was commissioned by the king of Orissa during the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You may know his name, Prataparudra. He commissioned an artist to paint him with Lord Chaitanya and his devotees. So you might imagine, I could easily imagine, if you're the king and you have an artist, you're going to portray yourself or the king with Lord Chaitanya doing Sankirtan, right? But that's not what he did. He portrayed himself. He's the one paying obeisances in front of everybody. Hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from the person with the Bhagavatam as Gadadhar Pandit. And behind him are Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. And there's others, Advaita Acharya and Srivas, and so forth. Ramananda Roy, Swarup Damodar, Jagadananda Pandit, and so forth. Everyone's named. over there on the far right, that's Haridas Thakur. So Lord Chaitanya, personally heard Srimad Bhagavatam from Gadadhara Pandit every day, in addition to chanting. It's described in Chaitanya Bhagavat. He heard it hundreds of times, again and again. When he finished hearing the pastime, he would say it again, say it again. It was a regular occurrence with Lord Chaitanya and his associates. Here's a nice verse from Srimad Bhagavatam introduction. In the modern age, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu preached Srimad Bhagavatam by practical demonstration. It is easier to penetrate into the topics of Srimad Bhagavatam through the medium of Sri Chaitanya's causeless mercy. Now here's a very important one. And along with chanting, what's the role of Srimad Bhagavatam? That's our topic. Bhakti Siddhanta wrote, the kirtan culture widespread in Bengal has sprung from Lord Chaitanya's propagating Harer Nama Eva Kevalam, understanding of which has led to underemphasis of the importance of Shravanam. Because Shravanam Kirtan, right? Shravanam Kirtanam. So lots of Kirtanam, but not enough Shravanam. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur revealed that Harikatha is the Swarup Shakti of Harinam. So there you see Krishna with beads around him. That's the name. And then on the right side, that's Vyasadeva with the Bhagavatam. So the Bhagavatam is the Swarup Shakti of Krishna. Krishna is the name, and Srimad Bhagavatam is the Swarup Shakti of Krishna. Really clear, right? And how do you reach Krishna? Through the mercy of Radharani, right? You better read Srimad Bhagavatam along with Kirtan. It's important. He writes, just as Krishna is properly worshipped not alone, but with his Swarup Shakti, Shri Radha, recitation of Harinam is incomplete and improper unless accompanied by hearing Harikatha. So we do both. Here's Prabhupada describing the 9 processes of bhakti from Canto 7, Chapter 5. He's describing the hearing process, Shravanam process. Hearing from the text of Srimad Bhagavatam is considered the most important process of hearing. Srimad Bhagavatam is full of transcendental chanting of the holy name, which is true. It's true. The pages of the Bhagavatam are filled with the holy name. That's the name. And then the pastimes and qualities and activities. It's full of chanting the holy name, and therefore the chanting and hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam are transcendently full of mellows. How did the Bhagavatam manifest? Vyasadeva was feeling dissatisfied. Narada told him it's because you haven't, after compiling all the Vedas, you haven't sufficiently glorified the Supreme Lord, so do that. Sutta Goswami said, all different varieties of Atma Ramas, or those who take pleasure in the Atma, or spirit self, especially those established on the path of self-realization, though freed from all kinds of material bondage, desire to render unalloyed service unto the personality of Godhead. This means that the Lord possesses transcendental qualities and, therefore, can attract everyone, including liberated souls. You familiar with this verse? Atmaramas chamunayo nirgrantha api uruprame. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a whole chapter, one whole chapter, dedicated to Lord Chaitanya explaining the Atmarama verse to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. They were having a discussion. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya for 7 days was instructing Lord Chaitanya in Vedanta Sutra to protect his sannyas. And on the 8th morning, he said, I don't know if you understand what I'm teaching, because you don't say anything. And Lord Chaitanya said, I don't say anything because I very clearly understand Vedanta Sutra, but your meanings make that, your explanation make the meaning clouded over. Oh? Well, if you understand Vedanta Sutra, then can you explain it to me? Lord Chaitanya explained it very simply. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was astonished. He said, I've never heard that kind of an explanation. Could you please explain the Atmarama verse, this one? And Lord Chaitanya said, oh, you're such a learned scholar. I'd like to hear you explain it. Okay, I'll explain. So he explained it in 16 different ways. And Lord Chaitanya said, very good, very good. Then, now can I hear your explanation? So he explained it in a whole chapter. It's very interesting that the essence of the verse has to do with Shukadeva Goswami. Shukadeva Goswami was Brahman realized. He had no attraction for anything material, but when he heard Srimad Bhagavatam, he became attracted to Srimad Bhagavatam, which means the message of Srimad Bhagavatam is not material, because he had no interest in anything material. He was really interested in Srimad Bhagavatam. So the qualities and activities and etc. of Krishna, fully transcendental. And even Atmaramas, those that are fully self-satisfied and have no interest in anything to do with material anything, they're attracted. That's the last line. This means that the Lord possesses transcendental qualities and therefore can attract everyone, including liberated souls. Do you recognize the painting on the left side? What's that all about? It's in the back is Vyas, and in the front, the pregnant wife of Vyas was very uncomfortable because her son, Shukadeva Goswami, wasn't leaving her womb for 16 years. She was very uncomfortable. And Vyas went to Krishna, help, all the way from his ashram, all the way to Dwaraka by foot, to invite Krishna, please come. So Krishna came and he made a promise to Shukadeva. I know you don't want to leave the womb because you don't want to become entangled in material anything. So I promise you won't become entangled. Please come out. So he came out. Although he wasn't attracted to anything material, he was attracted to the Bhagavatam. And I'm going to tell the Gokarna story, which is a really nice story from the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. You ready? I don't know if you've heard it before. It's from, in Padma Purana, another one of the Puranas. It has a whole section, Bhagavata Mahatmya section, the glories of the Bhagavatam. So the story goes like this. In Karnataka is the, I think it's the Tamraparni River. And by the side of the Tamraparni River, there was a village during the old days where there were many, many, many brahmanas. And one of those brahmanas was named Atmadev. And Atmadev was married, and I forget his wife's name. And she was a brahmani. She was a qualified lady, but she was a little on the grumpy side and, talked back to him and a little unpleasant in her speech, but he tolerated because that's what you're supposed to do, right? And some time passed and they had no children. So Atmadev decided he would go to do austerities in the forest and perhaps gain some pious merits and be able to produce children, a son in particular. So he went to the forest and he was by the side of a lake, or river doing his austerities, and one sannyasi came by, and the sannyasi asked him, "What are you doing?" And he told this little story. Dunduli, I think was her name. Dunduli was his wife's name. There's no sons. And he said, "Well, let me look at your horoscope." So he examined his horoscope and said, "Oh, Amadev, for 12 lifetimes, you're not going to have any sons." And, that pushed his button. He said, "I got to have a son, I got to have a son. You're not going to have a son." Then he told them the story that's from Srimad Bhagavatam about Maharaj Chitraketu. Maharaj Chitraketu's story is found in the 6th canto of the Bhagavatam. And the long story short, it takes several chapters, but the short version is he didn't have sons, so he married additional wives, the queens. And by the time he married so many queens, he had more queens than Krishna had. Krishna had how many queens? 16,108, right? According to the Bhagavatam, King Chitraketu had 100,000 queens. He must have had wealth to be able to maintain them all, but, no sons. He said, "You're not going to have a son. You're not going to have a son. Face it. And no, please do something. Please do something." So the sannyasi said, "All right, here's a mango, and you take this mango back, give it to your wife, and tell your wife if she takes the mango, then she'll bear a son. But there's a condition. She has to fast for 1 year." So he was really happy, told his wife. She was really happy, except for fasting for 1 year. She didn't like that. Dunduli had a sister, and she told her sister, "This is really confidential, my dear sister, but such and such and such, and I'm not ready to fast for a year." Her sister said, "I have an idea. The idea I have is I am pregnant, and I will have a son after some months, and you can just tell all the people that you ate the mango, and when the son is born, I'll give you my son." And she said, "That sounds great, let's do that." And then they gave the mango to a cow just to see what would happen. And guess what? The cow gave birth to a human child with cow ears. So they named the cow Gokarna. But it wasn't a cow, it was a Brahmin, because he was a Brahmana, and his sister was a Brahmani. So Gokarna was born of the cow. And then when his sister delivered a son, they named him Dundukari. So the two boys grew up, Gokarna and Dundukari grew up together. But Gokarna just became really good. And Dundukari became really bad, like really bad. Bad and really bad, really bad. So bad that his father, Atmadev, was disgusted. He left home, went to the forest, striving for liberation. Like the sannyasi had advised him, take sannyas. And his mother, Dundukari, that's Dundukari's, Dunduli was his mother's name. She became so frustrated, she drowned herself. So that left this young man now with a home, but with no mother and father. Because he was born in a Brahmana family, he had no means to maintain himself. So he became a robber to maintain himself. And then through bad association, he started cohabiting with a prostitute. And he did bad stuff, like lots of bad stuff. And so the constables of the local king came to know that he's this robber. So they came and grabbed him, tied him up, and burned him. End of Dundakari. But because of so many sins, he became a preta, not a ghost. I'm not so familiar with that term, preta. I had to look it up. It means not a ghost, but the way it's translated is a phantom. In any case, sounds like a ghost to me. And it was very painful for him. And because he grew up and had friendship with Gokarna, he came and bothered Gokarna. Help me, help me, help me. So Gokarna went to Gaya and performed a Shraddha ceremony for his friend who has left his body, but was still in this dip predicament. Didn't work. Nothing happened. So Dundakari is petitioning him. So Gokarna, he's a Brahmana, he went to the sages and asked, what should I do? They said, you should worship the sun. So he worshiped the sun. And after some time, the sun god spoke to him and said, what you should do is recite Srimad Bhagavatam. Recite the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. Bring together a gathering, recite the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, and everything will be all right. So Dundakari didn't have a physical body, so how was he going to attend the Bhagavatam class? He hid himself or positioned himself inside some bamboo poles that were, making the arena for his Gokarna's Bhagavatam class. And each day, after one day, one knot in the bamboo pole broke. And at the end of the seventh day, the pole burst open. A Vaikuntha Vimana descended from the sky, in the sky, and Vishnu Dutas were assembled in that Vaikuntha Vimana, and Dundakari manifested a four-armed Vishnu form, Narayan form, and they were taking him to the spiritual world. So Gokarna said, wait a minute before you go. How come all these other people didn't achieve what you achieved? And because they heard the same message. And he said, they didn't hear attentively. I was hearing really attentively because I was suffering so much and I wanted relief from that suffering. His motivation was material, but he was listening attentively. So the assembly decided, let's do it again. And we'll listen really attentively this time. And one by one, they achieved Vaikuntha realm from hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. That's in Padma Purana, just from reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. Nice. Glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. Here's another Bhagavatam verse, Canto 2, Chapter 2. Those who drink through oral reception, fully filled with the nectarian message of Lord Krishna, the beloved of the devotees, purify the polluted aim of life. That's the people on the left painting. Known as material enjoyment, and thus go back to Godhead, to the lotus feet of Him, the personality of Godhead. Here's our final quote. Persons who, no, there's two more. Persons who hear Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a young fellow, regularly, and are always taking the matter very seriously, will have the personality of God, Sri Krishna, manifest in their hearts within a short time. Doesn't say how long short is, but short time. There's some nice people very happy to have Srimad Bhagavatam in their home. One who, with undeviating attention, constantly recites this literature at every moment, of every hour, as well as one who faithfully hears even one verse, or half a verse, or a single line, or even half a line. Certainly purifies his very self. Okay, so now we have these two things, Harinam and the Bhagavatam. And both have a lot of support. Harinam cleanses envy, the root cause of all anarthas, right? Chaitadarpana marjanam. By chanting Krishna's holy name, one cleanses all the dust from the mirror of one's consciousness. But also, those like the six Goswamis, they're non-envious, they're absorbed in transcendence, they like the Srimad Bhagavatam. So here we are at the conclusion. There's the holy name. Remember that image we saw the first slide? Holy name is over there. Holy name purifies and allows one to enter deeper into the Bhagavatam. Now notice the reversal over here. Bhagavatam bestows deeper conviction in Sri Nam. They work well together. And here's our last slide. Nama Sankirtanam Yasya Sarva Papa Pranashanam. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord Hari, the congregational chanting of whose holy names destroys all sinful reactions, and the offering of obeisances unto whom relieves all material suffering. There's Prabhupada before. The deities in the Bhaktivedanta manner. A nice place, Bhaktivedanta manner. Nice deities too. Celebrated deities. So deity worship is also part. And then serving the devotees and residing in the holy place. And if you can't reside in the holy place, Nectar of Instruction recommends that you think of that holy place and hanker for that opportunity to visit the holy place and one day reside there. With the pandemic, it's a little tough. We were planning to go 2 years in a row to Vrindavan for a yatra during Kartik. 1 year we canceled. This year it's going to be virtual. And it's nice. But it's not the same. It's nice. It's transcendentally nice. I can tell you, it's increasing my hankering to go there. Maybe the following year we'll be able to go. So there's our topic for this evening. We'll go back to the opening slide. Mutually supportive roles of Sri Nam and Srimad Bhagavatam. Let's see if there's some discussion. How are we doing on time? Anything in the room? Questions, comments? Okay.
I had a question over Zoom, Maharaj.
Okay, could you hold off on the online?
Prabhu, just hold off.
Could you hold
Yes.
off?
Yes, Prabhu.
There's a young devotee here that wants to ask a question.
In this story, you said Atmadev's wife's name was Dundali, but you said the same thing for Chitraketu. So is Chitraketu Atmadev?
What happened to Atmadev? That's what you're asking?
Yeah, his wife, you said her name was Dundali, but you also said that Chitraketu Maharaj's wife was also named Dundali.
Yeah. Who
understand why his wives they had the same problem.
Oh, they had the same problem, but they're different people. That's your
Okay.
question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Chitraketu became Vritrasura and went back to Godhead. Atmadeva took sannyas, and we don't know what happened to him.
Okay.
He became really disgusted with his hankering for material enjoyment. He became pretty detached. But I'll look it up. He maybe attained something wonderful, but it's two different people. That's your
Okay.
question? Are they the
Yes.
same people? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so online,
Thank you.
let's go. You had a nice question.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. My question was, one of the verses that you showed said that anyone who takes the name even non-seriously or jokingly, in other words, Namabhas,
Yeah.
he is still immediately freed from the reactions of all his past sins.
Yes.
How are we to take this verse literally, Maharaj?
Oh, yes.
So when we see people, even devotees, Maharaj, it doesn't seem like one who has chanted the name even once is freed from all his past karma. Generally, it's a process and a multi-year, multi-decade kind of process to gradually elevate yourself.
That's I'm protesting.
Mhm.
What devotees experience as far as their past activities are concerned, supposing somebody desists from bhakti, then they can start accumulating karma again. But if the past activities, they're wiped clean. Now, here we are sitting in the living room and there's a fan in the ceiling. Supposing we shut the fan off, what happens? There's residual action of the blades of the fan, but it's not going to continue to spin indefinitely. It's going to stop. So like that, when one chants, it's like switching the switch to off position. There may be some residual action, but it's not karma. It's not the same as generating new karma. It's residual. It's diminishing the effect. You've heard that example. So does that help you with your question? It's here's another example that I heard in Prabhupada's lectures several times. Supposing by your karma, you're to get a broken arm, and you chant Hare Krishna. Then you get a bump on your arm instead of a broken arm. You get a token reminder, which isn't karma, it's a token reminder of your past activities. So we have lots of bumps on our arms. I mean, we have lots of difficulties that come our way. But the difficulties that come the way of a devotee is different than karma. One of the verses I really liked in Brahma Samhita, I'm sure you know the verse. It starts, Yas Tvindra Gopam Atavindra Mahosva Karma Bandhanurupam Palabhajanam Atunoti Karmani Nirdahita Kintu Cha Bhakti Bhajam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So it's a short purport by Bhakti Siddhanta, but it's two sets of procedures. From Indra down to the lowest creature, like an Indra Gopa germ, it's right in the verse. They receive their deserve from their past karmas, very refinedly and very appropriately. And then the second is Bhakti Bhajam, those that are engaged in bhakti. There's a different set of rules, and the different set of rules is Govinda arranges for such a person that the very root of fruitive activity, namely nescience and evil desire, are taken from the heart. So if there's some misfortune or some difficulty or something like that happens with a devotee, that's how we to see it. It's the Supreme Lord removing from the very root the tendency for fruitive activity. But that's not karma. Karma doesn't do that. Bhakti does that. Bhakti Bhajam does that. So it's a different set of rules. The blades of the fan may, continue to spin, but they'll stop. And the tendency of third time for engaging in fruitive activity, namely nescience and evil desires, are removed. The Supreme Lord does that through his Bhakti Shakti. And that's, so supposing one just does Namabhas, Bhakti Shakti is still there. It's not the full Shuddha Bhakti, but what it does, according to Haridas Thakur, he confirms, the reactions to sins are eliminated. To your question now, can we take it literally? Yes. Just don't plug that fan back in again. Don't stop chanting. Okay?
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else? Looks like you're letting me off easy.
There is a question, Guru Maharaj.
Okay.
Yeah. Maharaj, one of the verses you showed said that Krishna has invested all his potencies in his holy name.
Yeah.
That should mean his Swarup Shakti as well.
Yeah, everything.
Yet later on you showed a verse saying Srimad Bhagavatam is the Swarup Shakti, and thus needs to be read in addition to chanting Harinam.
Yeah.
How do we then understand that the chanting of holy names needs to be supplemented by reading to harness Krishna Swarup Shakti? Why does it not follow easily from chanting of the holy names itself?
That's a brilliant question. And the answer is, everything is there in the holy name. But, here's a big but. But, without proper Sambandha Gyan, I had a discussion with somebody this morning about Sambandha Gyan. Without proper Sambandha Gyan, one can chant the holy name and think all kinds of different things that are off target. For example, the first chanting of the holy, so it's you can get free from sin, but you're not necessarily going to be delivered to the stage of love of God without proper Sambandha Gyan. When I was in college a few years ago, the first chanting of Hare Krishna that I experienced was from an individual who was traveling around in the college circuit chanting Hare Krishna. But he was an impersonalist. I didn't know what an impersonalist was, but he was an impersonalist. And he was saying something that sounded really cool. He said, become one with the name. That's cool. Become one with the name. So I just, followed it. And then he started explaining what that meant. In the beginning, there's you in the name. And after some time, it's just the name. And I said, forget this guy. Because what he's saying is, I become Krishna. Poor Krishna. When I didn't understand what impersonalism was. It's just like, didn't make any sense. So one can chant Hare Krishna and not have proper Sambandha Gyan and go off the edge. Or you say, not get the full benefit of the chanting. So we need Sambandha Gyan. Although it's there, one may not access it without hearing Harikatha. There's the Swarup Shakti that becomes manifest through the holy name. Okay? Okay, great. I was hoping you'd have a question.
Couple of them actually. They are going to come slowly, Maharaj. So, Maharaj, we talk about hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Is hearing Srimad Bhagavatam same as reading Srimad Bhagavatam book?
Yes and no. I mean, yes, because the Srimad Bhagavatam itself is recorded. I mean, the commentary is explicitly recorded. And the whole of the composition of Srimad Bhagavatam is recording of Vyasadev's realizations. So reading it is hearing it. So that's saying yes. And then saying no is it's meant to be recited aloud. And even more so, it's meant to be recited ideally in the company of others. But supposing you don't have others, supposing you live in Timbuktu and you don't have others. So you just read the Bhagavatam. But whenever there's an opportunity, it's nice to read and discuss. It's ideal. But yeah, reading is similar. Bhaktisiddhanta gives like a refinement of this. And that is, when you read and read and read, then it becomes smarana. But it's not like, memorization kind of smarana. It's like awakening of Krishna consciousness kind of smarana. So it's the same and not the same. One can, make an argument or take a position either way. What was your second question?
Maharaj, how do we know our spiritual master has arrived? We talk about taking initiation. We talk about finding a living guru. How do we know this is our spiritual master?
Common question. A good question as well. I've been asked that question many, many times. And I've recorded answers in the questions and answers section of, I've been doing for like 30 years. It started with Potomac Temple. What I'll do is I'll make a couple of small statements, and then I'll have ask somebody who has all that information, send it to you. Written out, multiple responses to that very question, and almost the same question. In China, they have a really funny idea. In China, the funny idea they have is somewhere out, it's like a soulmate kind of an idea. Somewhere out there is my guru, I just have to find him. So that's not what it means to find your spiritual master. Rather, in ISKCON at least, our primary Shiksha Guru is Prabhupada. And that's very obvious. We read his books and hear his lectures and follow. What we follow is based upon his teachings. He's the primary Shiksha Guru. And it's very important to recognize that and establish that relationship with the primary Shiksha Guru. It's not just you, future generations as well. ISKCON means Prabhupada is the primary Shiksha Guru. So with that primary Shiksha Guru, as that becomes, clearer, then comes, you are to take initiation, Diksha, from a present spiritual master, the current link. So there may be many current links. And all it takes is one, although there may be many. And it's not that, somewhere out there amongst the many, there's mine, kind of like this idea the Chinese devotees have. The one spiritual master is someone who you see several criteria. They're in disciplic succession. They're presenting the teachings of the primary Shiksha Guru transparently, of course, according to their personality and so forth. But their teachings are nothing but the teachings of the primary Shiksha Guru. Then a third criterion. So disciplic succession, simply speaking, Prabhupada's teaching, just delivering his message transparently. And they're living his message. They're living examples of his message. They're perambulatory messengers of that message. They move about here and there, and their achar and their prachar there's no difference. And then, subjectively, I have a sense that by this person, if I continue to follow this person, the one who's representing transparently the teachings of Prabhupada, and they're living it themselves on a regular basis, and there's some examination of that, I feel my Krishna connection is secure. I feel the presence of Krishna, and I follow this person, I'll go to Krishna. And there may be many such persons, and that's what's wonderful. Those are Shiksha Gurus. You may be multiple such persons. But the primary person who, so you hear from them on a regular basis, and you feel that Krishna connection. And the other criterion. It's not a Sherlock Holmes mystery or something. It's a natural process. It's a relationship. It's like, how does a young girl today find out who her husband is? There's lots of men out there. So how does she find out? No, it's in the Vedic process, it's simple. Their parents make arrangements for a young girl to find her husband. And a young girl that's proper, they'll certainly be in concert with their parents. So it's not a one-to-one comparison, but so that while there may be many qualified husbands or men to become husbands, you want to be connected to a qualified person who's qualified to guide your life as husband to wife through life. And then even more so with spiritual master. There may be many. That's wonderful. But you only need one. And then once that connection is made, it's acknowledged, then you move forward like that. It's relationship, and it's resting upon hearing. The whole of the Vedic process is resting upon hearing. And through hearing, the relationship becomes recognized. Achar is also there, but the hearing is most important.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah.
Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
I have a small question, Maharaj, if I may.
I'm ready.
I wanted to know, how does the nectar of chanting the holy name feel like or taste like?
Like nectar. It feels like protection and downpours of an atmosphere of mercy. The holy name, as Krishna is very kind, the holy name is very kind, and you feel when you're with a person who is very kind, you feel it. And when you're chanting the holy name and you're receiving the nectar of the holy name, you feel it. Now, you may be feeling many other things too, but as chanting becomes matured, there's the sense of safety and protection and mercy, and it's with you, and it's pervasive, or it's within your heart. You feel Krishna is in your heart, as the holy name is there with you in your heart, wherever you go. And you're safe. And you're protected. No, dangers may come and all that stuff. You use your intelligence, you're not passive, but you feel safe. And cared for by Krishna. The merciful Krishna is with you in your heart through the form of his holy name. How's that?
Wonderful, Maharaj. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thanks for giving the class. So this is regarding living in a holy place. We worked so hard to get far away from the holy place, Vrindavan, and now we are sitting in Austin. And, we are talking about living in a holy place.
Yes, we are.
A big dilemma.
So what to do?
Yes.
I expressed it. You you long for that stage in life and the opportunities during this lifetime where you can be in the holy dham and eventually reside there. So that hankering, it's not the same, obviously, but it's like the gopis hankering to be with Krishna. It's the feeling of separation from that wonderful place. They have these T-shirts, "I left my heart in Vrindavan." So, those that have a feeling for Vrindavan, I know devotees that live elsewhere, and they have a feeling that Vrindavan is the real home. And they're here, and the way that Prabhupada arranged it is, he wanted us, this is during the dynamic, all young, unmarried men and newly married couples just doing, expanding the Hare Krishna movement like anything. So go once a year to, he called it the Mayapur Vrindavan Festival, for cleanse and reconnect, and then go 11 months of the year back to your place of preaching and take that charge with you, and then come back. And so that's how he saw it during a certain stage of the movement. So for you, with a family and this and that, you may not be able to do it like that, but to make a plan where you, either alone or with your family or whatever, don't just, go there, go to Delhi, get in a taxi and zoom around Govardhan Hill, but spend some time where you're getting the dust of Vrindavan into your being. And you're feeling the mercy of, the Radharani is very merciful, by the way. It's very merciful. And you spend some time in Vrindavan and you feel it. Like, you feel it. Very merciful. The dust of Vrindavan is very merciful. And so it's different than Austin. And so you hanker to be there again. Okay? And it's where your heart is.
Thank you. My wife is ready anytime. So, but thank you, Maharaj.
Some people just pick up and some people try to pick up and go there and they can't. Because you have to be qualified to stay in Vrindavan. I know some people that live in Vrindavan, and it's hard to stay there. Without, it's an intense place. Purification is so, but it's transcendental. It is what it is. It's nice to go and visit, and then come back. And then to hanker to be there and qualify yourself over a period of time to reside there, longer durations and so forth. Okay. Anything from our younger devotees? Nothing? Okay.
during initiation, spiritual master gives a new name. Is it Krishna revealing to the spiritual master what the name should be?
It's not like that. That's it's another misconception. It's intended to help us remember Krishna. The giving of a spiritual name, like Prabhupada would say, Krishna Das, or Hari Das, or Vishnu Das, is to help us remember Krishna. Now, there may be some feeling inside of a spiritual master, this is a very suitable name for this disciple, or something like that. But it's not. It's a sign from Krishna about something eternal in your relationship with Krishna, or something like that. It's not like. That's not the idea. To help you remember Krishna, that's the idea. Okay. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.